And we are live. Oh, I'm so excited. Today we're going to have such a great Goal Chat Live. For those who don't know me, I'm Debra Eckerling. I'm the author of Your Goal Guide, a roadmap for setting, planning, and achieving your goals, and founder of the Deb Method. And I'm so excited today because we're going to talk about branding. And we had a really, I don't want to say intense because that's like negative connotation, but we had a very active Goal Chat last night on Twitter on this very topic. And I even actually got into a conversation about branding with one of my clients today. It's so important because, especially in this day and age where people are people and people are their brand, it's so important to really know who you are and be able to put the you that you are out there, right? So today I'm speaking with my friend Russell Nohelty, and I've actually only known Russell about 6 months because we met at a conference for a Gloss right, like literally the weekend before the entire world shut down, which is great because we met each other just in time. And I spoke at your online writers conference earlier this year, and then we were on a panel together for Greater Los Angeles Writers Society talking about getting the most out of conferences, and we kind of digressed into this conversation about branding, and I'm like, oh, I have to have Russell on to talk about branding. So Russell Nohelty is a USA Today best-selling author, and you have your own publishing company, and you're like this Kickstarter genius. And what else do people need to know about you?
That's kind of it. That's a good summation, I think. I mean, I write fantasy novels. I also help people build their own brands through and careers through thecompletecreative.com, which is kind of my repository for all of the information that I've gleaned in the past 10 years, 15 years of doing this. So it's interesting because I'm now, for the first 10 years of my career, I was building one brand really. And for the past 2 years, I've really been building this like kind of other ancillary brand.
Got it. So the brand that you are building, what are you building now?
So when I started, I had one brand, which was Wannabe Press. Really two brands, because like your personal brand and your company brand are almost always the same thing at the beginning. You know, it's very hard to like build any company that you're not the center of, because people are buying you at first. So whether it's your books or your spinach shop or like your hairdresser, like they're really like taking a chance on you, and your brand doesn't mean a lot. What ends up happening with the brand is that it starts to outgrow you because you can only be one place. And so the things that you stand for as yourself are the things that sort of become what Wannabe Press started to stand for and what people thought about Wannabe Press. So Wannabe Press was the initial brand that I was building, but then that brand was relatively small, because when you first start a company, like it's quite small. Like this whole like build 7 figures in 3 months thing is like a fallacy that I wish would go away, but it doesn't. But most companies will grow to make low 6 figures if they're lucky, and they'll be lifestyle brands, and that takes time. It takes time because it means people have to interact with you. And yes, you can like accelerate that with ads or convention appearances or all this stuff, but it really is about getting to know you. But eventually, probably 2017, our brand started to explode. We started doing these big Kickstarters. We started like doing these big launches, and like we started being a known commodity in the indie book publishing space. And at that point, I had a lot of creators who were on my newsletter, and I would be sharing things about creating, which is, you know, what readers like. What readers like and what creators like are two different things. Like the readers want to know like the backstory of the characters and like how your trip to London influenced the scene, or like all of these things about the book and your writing process. But the creators want to know how the heck you did the thing that you did. Like, how did you grow your business? Like, how did you do all this stuff? And it started to become cumbersome to have this singular brand that represented both things. And so in 2017, towards the end of 2017, I split off that company, and I made a hard cut basically between Wannabe Press and this new brand called The Complete Creative, which is where I do my teaching about creativity. So it's where all my courses are. It's where my blog is. It's where my podcast is. All of the stuff about how to live a creative life is over here. And now the Wannabe Press is only about my creativity and the company's creativity. And so that was a really tough decision because it meant double the work, but it really became a point where the people on the Wannabe Press mailing list really sort of did not want to be disillusioned by like the process. They didn't want to like break the illusion of the writing process. And but there were enough people who were creators who wanted to like know the nitty gritty that if I didn't split them, I would have had to sort of leave one of those people behind.
Got it. So, and I talk about this sometimes too. You're still you. I mean, there's you in both of these brands that are yours, but the audiences for the different brands are different. But I feel like we jumped forward, and so I'm gonna jump a little bit back, which is to the initial question, which I asked last night at Goal Chat that we should start with. But what is branding and why is it important? Because, you know, and I'll of course chime in because I do that, but your brand is you, basically what you were saying anyway. But why don't you expand upon that?
Sure. So I'm gonna ask you to close your eyes, Deb, for a second.
Okay.
All right. And I want you to think of someone you love dearly.
Okay.
And I want you to think of three things that represent them that they love.
Okay.
All right. Now you can open your eyes. You just don't have to close nose just for showmanship. But like, tell me the three things that you associated with this person.
Okay. Well, let's take my mom. You know, she's like love, and she loves food, and she loves creating. So those I put as her like top three things.
Right, so those are her brand. That's her brand. Like that's so like.
I love that.
I want like everything. Every even animals, like my dogs have brands. Like everything. It's an ingrained piece of how we think of people and how we and it's this word branding is kind of like this buzzword. This bad, quote unquote bad word, but really what it means is what you associate with a person, place, thing, or idea. And cities have brands, and they have intrinsic brands. Like your mother doesn't work at her brand. She just exists in the world, and like these are the things. So when you see like a really cool video or a really cool recipe that you think she'll love, like you share that with her, right?
Yes, exactly.
And this is the exact same thing when it comes to branding. Like you want someone to say, for a lot of my fans, like, no, I love fairy tales, mythology, Lovecraft. And that is what they associate, like dark stuff. Like that is what they associate me with. So like they will share or tag me on posts that are associated with my brand. And now I have heightened those things. And I now am like taking the things that people associate me with and like exponentially increasing their exposure into the world. But the brand itself is the intrinsic piece of what people associate you with in a positive way.
I like that. I really like that. And when I answered this question last night on Goal Chat, similar but different, it's the way that you're identified. You know, your brand is the way people think about you, whether your brand is you, your product, your service. And I think the really cool thing about branding is exactly what you said. Someone thinks about something that relates to your brand, they think about you. And isn't that like the gold, is when I see my brand obviously is the goal setting cheerleader, you know, goal setting simplified. So I love it when my name and goal setting come together, because that's the way I self-identify, but that's also the way that I put myself out there. But also people, this show I did last week, she introduced me as goal setting, the goal setting guru. I don't know if she is guru, but I like alliteration, who loves cardio, dance, and Instant Pot. And that's so true. Those are the three things that I think people identify me as. So it's when you think about it in terms of, and we're writers and we know the rule of three. So I love that you played into that there. That's cool. So if you are watching, you want to either share what your three identifiable things are or your view of branding in the comments. We would love to hear from you. What else? What elements go into a brand, because people tend to, you notice this too, overthink everything. And I think especially in terms of branding, it really leads itself to overthinking because there's so many elements. Yes?
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to turn this for a second so you can see this bee behind me. Right. So you see that bee behind me, that little like that painting of a bee?
Yes.
So that is our mascot, Melissa the Wannabe. And that is and what we want is for somebody who looks at that picture and identifies and says, that's cool, or I like that they know for sure that they are going to like the things under it. Now I'm going to tilt this down for a little bit. Like these are our 4 of our books. Now, what do you recognize between the bee and the books below the bee?
Oh, the eyes. Easy, right?
And also just the style, right? Like
right?
The style of book. Like if you look at this bee and then you look down, you see the books that this bee represents. There is consistency among there. So you want something, the elements of a brand that are really important are that when somebody looks at your brand, they can immediately tell that they are going to want to associate with that brand. That like that's the only important part. Like whatever elements, yes, no, like whatever elements are good or bad about your brand, what really is important is that when they look at your logo and your mascot, when somebody thinks of you, there is a positive correlation between yes, I want to be associated with that thing, and that you're attracting the right people to that brand.
Got it. They like your wannabe bee. They like everything about you.
Yes. Well, there's a high correlation because it's not like one to one. But when someone goes, hey, look, that's cute, I go, you'll really like our books then. Because most people won't. Because this is the other really important element is you can't be everything to everyone. You've got to really say, wow, I really love that bee. Or like, I really love like the way you're put together. I mean, look, we are both successful professionals, Deb. We are nothing alike in like how we present ourselves.
This is very true. Yes.
I mean, look, like I am clearly out of focus right now for some reason, and I can't get my camera in focus. Like I'm wearing a Transformers shirt, and like I'm very aggressively talking about like the things with like a lot of forceful passion, and like that is my style. That is my style of like how I talk. It's how I write. It's everything about me sort of is encompassed in that rebellious bee, Melissa the Wannabe. Meanwhile, and then like, when people think of me, that's what I want them to think about. This like kind of like punk rock, like punk rock writer. And like, but when I think of you, I think of something completely different, but no less wonderful.
Oh, that's so sweet. But yes, and I think too, you know, I've got my book in the background, my Deb method. I like people to think of gold stars when they think of me, and in real life, I do have the gold stars that I hand out to people.
What's really important is like you like really are as motivational, like to the level of exhaustion for me, because I'm not that motivational, but like you really are that like person behind it. And so that's the important for me when I think of Deb and whatever the Deb method and like the motivation and like the cheerleader and like the goal setting. Like when I then I can confidently then send somebody like my friend Sarah to you and say like, hi, you want goal setting? Like this person is the best for that. And she is, and I think you two will get along because you both have complementary personalities, or like I like you're really down about this thing, and like I think that she will really be able to help you do X. And for me, it's a very different proposition. I want people to say like, hey, you're kind of mired in all of these details. Like Russell will tell you what is important. He will cut out all the things that are not important, and he will also motivate you, but in a much different way. Like he'll motivate you in the like, crap, I need to get going kind of way and light a fire under you, not the like you can do it motivational kind of way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Definite sense. Because and this is and I have a client, somebody I met with today, And I remember our first meeting, she said she met with like 5 other business coaches, but I was the one who got her, which is to tie it back into branding. You are your brand. You need to find ways, if you haven't done so already, to illustrate. It's a good word. You've got lots of art behind you too, but ways to illustrate in your manner, in your presence, the things you put out in the world, so that it speaks to your people.
Absolutely. And to just go to something that I see Sarah said, she says, I need a little of both styles of motivation at times. And that's absolutely true. This is one of the most important parts of branding, because some days you will wake up and you'll just need to have a bright ray of sunshine. Another person, like our friend, Sherry Fink, is like the brightest ray of sunshine I've ever met. And like, someday, and like we are like very close, and like some days I just need Sherry to tell me that it's all going to be all right. But then other days, like she needs me to tell her that like logically, like she is in a better place than she thinks that she is in. Like we all need different things in different days. And another part of branding, I guess there are many elements of it, because we've been talking about it now for 10 minutes, but another part of it is like, look, when I want to watch like a feel-good animated movie, I'm going to go and watch Disney movie. I'm going to do it. But I'm a complicated human. And sometimes I want to watch a really dark stop motion movie, and I will go to Leica for that. Or I will, like, there are different people that I will go to for different things. And to go back to writing, sometimes I just want like the exact book that I just read. Like I just want like a really well done, like cozy mystery book. And like, I don't want any frills. Don't want to, like, I don't care. Like, I don't want it to be special. I don't want it to be unique. I just want it to be the thing that I know. And like, I know there are authors who do that. There's nothing against them. Like, I cannot do that kind of writing. But there are some times that I want to like have my mind blown, or I want something super dark or super light. And like, that is all part of the brand. You want someone to be top of mind for a specific kind of thing. When I started writing, my manager at the time said, you want to be in the top 3 on somebody's list, on one list. Like, it really doesn't matter what list you're on, as long as you're in the top 3 of it. It could be horror, fantasy, epic fantasy, like whatever it is, romantic comedy, but you need to be in the top 3, because if you're not in the top 3, they're never going to get to you. So that is another part of the brand. Like, there are people who are gurus who I really don't like, but I listen to them because I know I need them in my life, and I know the thing that they give me, and it's something that nobody else gives. Like, they are the best at giving that thing, and I can't find another one who's even close to as good as them. And like, all of those things are so important, because when I think of X thing, Y person shows up, and then when I go to their stuff, it is consistent with their brand, not just so that I can find them, but so that I can tell other people what to expect, and it is consistent. If your brand is constantly changing and evolving, I mean, we all change and evolve a little bit, but generally you want to be able to, I want you for the next 5 years to be able to say, if you need goal setting, if you need like a motivational, like helper, then like Deb is the person. And the longer I can do that consistently, the more referrals I can give, and the more confident I can be as a human being that like every time I do this, it's going to be locked in.
So it really goes back to, and I'm kind of going to jump into the next question, even though we're going to go a little bit all over the place. So what else is new? But, I think in the next question is, what are some ways people can start, improve, or reboot their brand? And it starts with you. Know thyself. Know who you are. Know what you represent. Or as I say, know the D in the Deb method, which is determine your mission. The who you are, what you do, what makes you unique, and what it does to help others. And if you know the who you are, then you can develop your brand from that.
Well, that's another part of that, which is you have to know not just who you are, but what kind of vibe you give off. Like, what kind of person, like, so I show people when I do that, when I take them as coaching, like, they need to do a lot of interviews with people to find out like who resonates with them and like why they resonate with them. But then after they're done, they need to look at this and say, oh, like I thought I was this really high class, like a literate human, and that's what I came off at. They're telling me a whole different thing. And then you have to really analyze like this. Do I want to change the things about myself and accentuate different pieces? Do I want to work on this, or do I want to work on changing the audience who resonates with me? Like, which of these two things do I want to fix about the brand? But yes, it's very much about what you're giving off and what other people are receiving. And those two things can be vastly different. And part of brand congruency, which is again another one of these like $10 buzzwords.
Right.
Part of brand congruency is that like when I say something, it gets interpreted by people in the way that like I expect it to be interpreted. And the person who I'm writing it for is getting the thing that I want them to get out of it. Now, this is not going to be 100% true, but if you can make that sort of leap, and then you can also find a ton of other people like them. And I was talking about this yesterday on, I did mentoring for DragonCon. And I was telling somebody that it's so important that you can find that someone gets to the point that they can trust you. And by trust, I mean like trust the brand and trust the promise that you're giving them. And it's not just that they can then go buy, but it's so that they can trust that they could that they know somebody who is just like you. They're like, oh, this is not me, but like I know that my uncle or my cousin or my brother will love this, and like I'll either get this for a gift or I'll introduce you. And so people, it's not just about finding the right person. It's about having consistency so that when that person gets to sort of the trust stage of you, when they know your brand, they can make a decision. Either I don't know one person, like I hate this so much, or like I like Deb, but like she's not for me, but I'll bet Sarah will love her. Or like, yes, this is for me. Or yes, this is for me and 3 friends as well.
Okay, so to like rein you in a little, just a little, not a lot. You are who you are, but who you are, there needs to be some sort of congruency between who you are and who you present and how people receive you. Yes?
Yes. So
okay.
So one of the things about improve your brand is most people are soggy potatoes, like with their brand, like they don't stand for anything. Like they're I don't want to say meek in a bad way, but like they're
just like go with the flow kind of whatever, this is life people.
Yes, or like they don't want to upset anybody, so they don't take a stand about anything.
Okay.
And so the best way to improve your brand is to it's a practice called the attractive character, and it is about cutting off the parts of yourself that like people don't like and amplifying the parts of yourself that people really respond to. And so I mean, I don't know. You know me. You know me when I'm not on air, but like I tend to not be this incredibly excited. Like I turn it up to 11. I turn the parts of myself that I know are going to resonate with the right people up to 11 when I am around other people, because that will attract people who want to hear that message and repel people who do not want to hear that message. And so most people are sitting at like a 1 or a 3 for everything. And really what they could do to improve their brand immediately is say, wow, people really don't like when I curse, or like they really don't like when I say these things, or like I really don't like, but they really love when I talk about this stuff. And so I'm going to talk about this a lot more, or I'm going to like dress in a specific way, or like I'm going to do these things because I know these things get results with the people that I want to help. And then these people who I want to help are turned off when I do X, Y, and Z thing. So it's about like improving your personality, like, but also amplifying the parts of it that are going to resonate with people the most, and also repel people the most, because that is the thing about attraction. Attraction, the opposite of attraction is repulsion, and the more the more you attract people, the more intensely, and I'm not saying intensely the way that I do it, but the more intensely you focus on the things that can attract the right people, the more you will also repel the wrong people.
Right. And I know people like this too. There are some people with you'll forgive me, their potty mouth. I don't know a better way to say that, but that is their brand. And you see their posts, and that's fine for them. This is, they call things as they see it. They go on rants. There are other people that are all about, peace, love, understanding, which they're also really good. But these people do these amped up in a way that, you're right, it's like in your face, peace and love, which is, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but it is a way to amp up your brand. Or they take their specialty and kind of shout it from the mountain, and that they know their stuff. That is their way, that is their method, that is their tone and their style and their personality. And because it is so amped up, it's exactly what you're saying. They take their thing and they make it huge, and you can't ignore it.
Right. Like, so to go back to my friend Sherry Fink, like when she does an event, she wears like a mermaid costume. She like has like 50 different color hair. Like she like amps up all of those parts of her. That's like joy and peace and love. And when I go to an event, I bring like the opposite side of that hammer. And like they honestly, like we do a lot of panels together because it works, because like she is this like people need to have the motivation that they can do it. And like she is great for that, but they also need to have the practical steps for how they can do it. And like I'm great for that. And those two pieces like are both of us amped up to 11. And people ask me how like I write blog posts the way that I do. And it's like literally 15 years almost of writing blog posts and like being able to know the things that people want me to say and how they want me to say it. Because I write a lot of motivational blog posts, but I do it in a much different way than Sherry would or you would. Like the stuff that I talk about is much more practical in its motivation. And it almost always comes back to like a sort of some trick, tip or hack and like some story that I learned that like can help it break it open to you. It's not just motivation for the sake of like getting you amped up. It has like a different practical purpose. And that just, again, is putting it up to 11 for myself and amplifying the things that I know already work because time. And you talked about rebooting your brand. I had quite the foul mouth like a couple of years ago, especially when I was doing a lot of shows. You'll notice that like I haven't cursed one time, but
I need gold star. Russell.
But every time and I don't actually curse a lot anymore, like hardly ever, except like last night when I was on my but like generally when I'm out and doing podcast appearances or things, like I don't do that at all, because like I found that while it amplified something to the group of people that I really wanted to hear my work, it also narrowed the amount of people who would listen to it. There were a lot of people who wanted the same thing that I talk about, but they just didn't want the language. And by just cutting the language part out, I could still have all of the pieces of my personality. I just like didn't have to curse, and I had to find another way to go about to say the same thing. But by doing that, it doubled or tripled or maybe even 10x the amount of people who would listen to the thing that I had to say by just cutting that part out. So it's not just about amplifying everything. It's about amplifying the pieces, but then trying to find ways to maximize the audience for the thing that you have to say as well.
Got it. Amp up the good, get rid of the and put it in a blender and throw your
something like that.
Yeah, and one of the things that I say, which you alluded to, but I'm just going to say it plain and simple, is practice. The more you do anything, whether it is writing or speaking or doing podcast episodes, it doesn't, whatever it is that you love, that you build your platform on, the more you do it, the better it's going to become easier. and the better you become at it as well. So I've been doing goal coaching for, I admit, to over 20 years. I've been leading these groups that are focused on goal setting and productivity. And from there, my business of coaching people, helping them make plans, getting from A to Z, from where they are to where they want to be, it's been this evolution. And one of the things that I love about my book and the development process of my book is the road trip theme, because that is all my brand. My brand is, okay, where do you want to go? This is how you get there. Ta-da. But stuff like that does not happen overnight. You sometimes take a while to figure out, okay, I'm good at this, this, and this. The more you do it, the more you can figure out, okay, I'm good at this, this, and this, but it's this. This is what I stand for. This is when I talk, the time goes like you blinked. And that's, if you're really looking for the thing that sets yourself above, look to yourself, look at these things and what really gets you going. I think anyone who's struggling for figuring out who they are, that's going to help them as well. Yes?
Absolutely. And sometimes we'll go back to cursing. So cursing is a crutch, but it's a good crutch. It's not like a crutch in a bad way, but not that there are bad crutches, but things but it's a thing that substitutes, that can substitute for something else. So for instance, cursing a lot brings the right kind of person over to you. The person that is kind of probably much more anti-authority than the average human being. The person that is more towards the middle is probably not going to like cursing as much. That's just the general sociology. But the thing is, you're saying the curse, and so you have to understand the underlying piece of it. So you're using one piece, and then you have to learn how to replace it with something else. It's okay, so cursing, this is the attitude that cursing conveys, and so how can I maybe curse less and replace that attitude and still have the same attitude, but just without this one piece of it? So part of what you're talking about of practice is the ability to say, all right, I have this tool. It's a very blunt tool. I don't know. I know that there's a better tool out there, but for now, all I have is a hammer. And then over time, you figure out what the right tool is, and you can replace that hammer with a screwdriver or whatever the better tool is for that situation, until eventually you're a master craftsman, and you have these, I don't know, you're a watchmaker, and you have these fine tools that you're using to do the work that you used to only be able to do with the blunt instrument.
I like that analogy. I think of Shawshank Redemption and the tiny little,
yeah.
I forgot the.
It's like a rock hammer.
Yeah, the rock hammer that he built these beautiful chess pieces and other things. If there's anybody on the planet who's never seen the movie, but it's the smallest tool possible, and you see what he did with it. It's a brilliant analogy. Okay, so we know that I think, you need to build a brand, reboot your brand. You start, with the introspection, figure out who you are, and then you go to amplify certain things and step back a little bit on other things. What are some other things people can do as they build their brand?
You mean to make it stronger, or in what respect?
Well, I'm thinking in terms of, well, first of all, I'm going to digress because I don't want to forget Adib's question. Very important.
It's an Autobot shirt.
Okay.
I've always played the good guys, even though I have this sort of penchant for villains. I always play the good guy.
See, and I think that's pretty funny if you think about that in terms of your brand.
It is, but
right?
look, the one thing that I can say about everybody is that we're all contradictions, and we're all hypocrites. So it's kind of about evolving all of those things together. For instance, there's a great what is something that you think horror people would dislike more than probably anything else in media? I'll answer your question. It's okay. Disney, right? It's Disney.
Right. I was going to say like flowers and sugar and sunshine and whatever, right?
So the the most diehard Disney fans that I know are the most diehard horror fans that I know. Like they are at both ends of the spectrum. And so while we're talking very specifically, like it's important to also know that like to build a brand, a robust brand, you have to understand completely the kind of person that you are trying to find or trying to speak to. So for like I help people build like audiences, kind of like that's kind of like the thing that I do. My big course is called Build a Rabid Fan Base, and it's about like finding 1,000 true fans basically. And the piece that people always trip up on is like this building a brand piece, and like how do I speak those 3 big words but understand that people are whole human beings. And I think that it's really important that as you're building your brand, you remember this piece, because just because someone likes dark things does not also mean they don't like rainbows and sunshine. It, like usually those 2 things work together. There's something called pastel goth, which is like my favorite thing ever.
I love that.
Which is like goth, but bright color, like bright color goth. And like I love that idea of having like the light and the dark, and like that is the thing that like I think about when I think about building my brand. It's that I'm trying to speak to a person, and it's really important that like they know who they're looking at and who they're going to talk, who they're going to find. But it's also important for me as I'm building my brand to understand that all of the people that are in my newsletter that buy my books are complete humans, and they don't only like one thing. So I share with them a lot of like the people that are in my audience already. I share with them a lot of stuff that like may not be 100% on brand for me from an outside perspective, but I know it is because I know it's things that they like. Like I know they like Avatar and like Invader Zim as much as they like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like those 2 things can operate in the same world. So when you're building your brand, it's important to know like this is step 1. Step 1, I'm just putting out a bullhorn and saying, I make dark books that are also funny, or like whatever your thing is.
Right.
And people go, oh, I like that thing. And then they turn and they look at you, but then they have to like get to know you. And as they get to know you, they're going to become more and more three-dimensional human, and so are you. So it's important to have sort of step 1, just maybe your Facebook profile or Instagram, whatever, your Twitter, maybe it's your autoresponder sequence, but whatever it is that like you're like shouting out here, I make dark, funny books. I make dark, funny books. They really got a lot of action, whatever the thing is. But that only goes so far, because lots of people make dark, funny books. Like I can name 100 of them. Some of them I like, some of them I don't. And so at every step, you have to have these ways that people grow more and more attuned to you and your work. And they say, I like how Russell writes these dark, funny books. I also like other people, but I like how Russell makes dark, funny books. And so, but they don't necessarily, they're not going to just turn and then suddenly be at step 5. You've got to make them build and build and build more affinity to you. And then the other thing is, when I know that people like my dark, funny books, I need to go and find other people who also make dark, funny books to either run ads to them or to work with them on promotions, or to, instead of having to talk to 10 million people out here, if I just find 5 other people who make dark, funny books and I can like work with them on promotions, I'm doing a lot of work. I'm cutting a lot of work that I don't have to do out in this like big area out here, because all of these people have curated these audiences, just like I have curated this audience. And if I'm willing to like do a collaboration where we do a piece together, or like we just share each other's books, or whatever the thing is, suddenly I'm growing my audience 10 times what I would if I was just shouting out into the ether, because I'm looking for these people that have the same kind of audiences that I have to work together with, so that we can build our brands together and like make a little sort of enclave of people. That's why when you see people succeed, they sort of seem to succeed as a group. because they've all been working together to like build their brands, and suddenly one of them explodes, and then like they pull the other one, and then they pull this one, and they pull this one, and suddenly they're all like growing together. And I think that building a brand is part of like, you've got to know what you're shouting out to everyone, and you've got to have a great product, and you've got to know the other people who are doing it in your space so you can work together, because nothing is built by itself. No brand is built by itself, even if you're a bunch of one-man bands.
Right. And that's why I always mention networking is like the number one way that you grow your brand, because you can't reach your goals by yourself. You need your people, and you need to put yourself in positions to find your people.
Yeah, but networking is but networking is like a double-edged sword, right? Because people often think that networking is about meeting a bunch of people. And like, it's really about meeting a bunch of people, but having relationships with a few people. So I always tell people they need to build a good network, but I don't always talk about networking, because networking is this thing that's like, I'm just going to go party with 5,000 people. And it's like, no, man, like going to that dinner with 5 people, if they're the right 5 people, is way more valuable. Like going to lunch with one of those 5 people the next day is way more valuable than doing anything else, because you're building the connections deeper than you can by just going to some networking event. Not that the networking event is not important, but networking and networking events, or the way that people often think about networking events, is kind of as skewed as how people think about branding and building a brand.
Okay, agree to disagree. I'm not going to disagree with you, because I'm completely on it with you need to find those people with whom you can develop the relationships with, but you have to start with the wide net.
Absolutely.
Is my take. So I met a bunch of people at the West Coast Writers Conference where we met, but I met you while we were doing a panel together, but Elizabeth was like, oh my God, it's Russell Nohelty. He is the best. And so this new friend of mine was way talking you up. And I'm like, Russell, I hear you're like the greatest thing since sliced bread. We're on a panel together. Let's be friends. And you are definitely one of the, I'd say 5 to 10 people that I took from meeting that conference to. You go to a conference, you meet a lot of people, you target people who are your people, you follow up, you have those dinner parties, and you can have Zoom dinner parties, or you can have Zoom lunches or coffees, and then you get to know them on a deeper level.
Absolutely.
So
my contention is just that some people think that going to the net, like they will just go to the networking event, or they'll go to the conference and they'll be like, I was around a bunch of people, I met them,
right.
Like I met them, and like, but nothing happened. And I always say, well, what did you do to like further that relationship later? It's like nothing. It's like, did you friend them on Facebook? Did you send them an email afterwards? Like, did you read their book and then tell them how great it was? Like, and they're like, no, didn't do any of that. But I was there. I was there. And so by osmosis, I'm just going to like grow my network. Right. And it's like, no, it's a combination of being there and then developing that relationship further, because, you know, let's say for every 100 people you meet, there's one that becomes like a really close friend of yours, and or like out of every 1,000 you get one real fan. Like, you've still got to have the 1,000 or the 100, but you then have to do the work. And I find this with people who are building an audience all the time. They're always like, I got a bunch of people on my email list. I'm like, cool. Like, what did you do then? And then they're like, I have them. I got them. And I'm like, no, like that 5,000 people, maybe 100 people that are like really going to be but you have to work for them. You've got to work to like make them love you, or make them understand why they should love you, or make them understand why they don't care. But like, you've got to do the work. If you want to have the network of people who are going to buy your books, you've got to also have the network you've also got to have the network of people who don't care about your book, or don't care about you, or like that you turn away from. Like without the secondary work, like there is no network. Networking does not lead to a network without work.
I have a really good example. So I want to say hi to Amy, who just poked in. to the group. Now, I have known Amy for, I think we figured maybe 3 years. We had our first actual conversation via Zoom a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to be on our Facebook Live show later in the year. But we met at Social Media Marketing World several years ago. We connected. I saw she's also a fan of Dancing in You Jam, and she posted that she was looking for guests, and it was one of those. I commented, she reached out, let's chat, and that's what it is. You meet people, you connect with them, and it could be 1, 2, 3, 5 years down the line that you have that conversation, but you need to stay in touch and in front of people, because that's how you find the 1 out of 100, the 5 out of 500, whatever.
I mean, it's absolutely true. I just started an artist. Like I just sent a contract to a new artist that I've known for years, that I've watched grow into an art. Like almost every book that I do is from like a long-standing relationship before we ever worked together. So, and I think that people who are at the beginning of their careers fail to understand how little time 5 years is. Like it feels like a long time. But I look back at the relationships that I was building 5 years ago that are now bearing fruit on some level. Either we're working together, or like we're doing a promotion together, or something or another, or they're just like really cool friends that I love to death. And like it feels like a long time, that 5 years, especially the first 5 years, especially the first years before things start paying off, and like just building the network and doing the work, and like it doesn't feel like you're ever going to have that like strong network. And I kind of like just feels like it magically appeared overnight. Like I feel like at some point it just magically like started like happening, like one day, like a year in or 2 years in, or once people knew the kind of person that I was, and what the brand stood for, to go back to like what the brand stood, like what Russell Nohelty as a brand stood for. And then they said, I know what Russell Nohelty stands for. Now I know what Wannabe Press stands for. Now I want to be involved in that process. And now I understand what the Complete Creative stands for. And yes, I will vouch for them. Yes, I will do this, because there's a track record of me doing this stuff, and of me successfully working with people and releasing books and just being pleasant to be around. And it's really, I think it's really not fair how much of branding is really about just like being pleasant and having people want to work with you. There are so many people that are more talented than me. There's so many people that make better books than I do, or as good of books than I do. Even though I think I make like amazing books, or like the stuff I do is amazing, but there's so many people that just have never taken the networking part seriously, or never taken the brand part seriously, or never taken the like being out into the world seriously, or cultivating contacts seriously, or cultivating the right contacts seriously. And I watched them over the last 5 years, like not do the things that I've done, and not grow at the pace that I've got. And like, there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of them is certainly just like the Russell Nohelty brand is something that I've always really cared about. I've always wanted to leave someone with an impression, whether they was positive or negative, that like Russell Nohelty existed here. He was here. He was at this place. The next time someone sees me, like they'll remember it. They'll remember that I was there. And then 5 times later, they'll be like, wow, this is a really nice book. Oh, Russell did that? That's great. And the more that you can sort of have that consistency and do it over a long period of time, really, that's what a brand, like that's when you actually have a brand that matters. You have a brand that matters when you do the things we've been talking about, but you do it over the length of time that we're talking about, because it all builds on each other. It builds on each other just like compounding interest builds. It doesn't feel like it does anything, and then it feels like it does everything at once. And then once it's there, then it's about keeping feeding it and keeping growing it little by little. But it's so much easier. You know, I always talk about like stopping or like slowing down, but you could never do that. Like you have to really take that seriously, because once the ball is rolling, it's almost impossible to stop. And then once it stops, it's almost impossible to get it rolling again. It's almost like starting. But once you have it rolling, like, and it's building momentum, it becomes easier and easier over time, as long as you're taking it seriously and doing the things we've talked about so far.
And it really, we got on a networking tangent, but it really has everything to do with branding, because by being who you are consistently, that's what makes you memorable. And that's what when people years down the line, they see something and it reminds them of you, it's because your brand was memorable. It doesn't matter how long ago they met you.
Yeah,
it made that kind of impression.
Absolutely. Like, I don't know how many people come up to me talking about Kickstarter or some Kickstarter that I did, or like they don't even know who I am. They just know that like I know how to run Kickstarters, and like Kickstarter this and Kickstarter that, and like I know just from running 13 campaigns over 6 years, and like we're running our 13th now, that like people will always, as long as I'm doing that thing well, it has built on itself, because for years I ran Kickstarters well. And then like for years people watched me, and then people took notice, and then I kept running them well. And then more people took notice, and then those people started telling other people about it. And then by like year 5 or 6 now, it's like, oh, Russell's gonna like kick this, like kill this Kickstarter campaign, because like that's just what he does. Like he knows how to do this thing. And people come into my network all of the time, and they either have read one of my books, or they've heard that like I can do this one thing really well from probably not one, but probably a half dozen people at this point. And again, all of that is about building, like the success on Kickstarter is about having a consistent brand with a consistent message that has an audience that really responds. But they don't see that. Like no one sees any of all they know is Kickstarter guy. And like all of this other stuff is like an underlying piece of it. But that brand is what has endured over time. And part of, like, honestly, part of the problem with being new in building a brand too early. So we had Wannabe Press. We didn't have our mascot, for instance, for 2 years after we started this company. Because like you kind of don't know what your brand is. Like you don't know what people are going to respond to you till you're out there, till you're networking, till you're like talking to people, till you're telling them. Like you have to have a hypothesis, just like a science experiment. But I wish like people would just not make their mascot or maybe their logo like for longer than or with more thought than they seem to when I look at their logo or like what they do, because it feels like so often this like, do we need to rebrand or do we need to like start again or reboot is about like, oh, I thought I was going to talk about this, but like no one cares about this. What they really care about is this other thing. And so the ability to like branding, part of branding is the understanding that this is going to endure. And part of branding is like, oh crap, this was wrong. I made this thing. I made this like real bad. We've all got it. Like the strongest brands, I more often than not are built on, oh crap, this didn't work. This didn't work. This didn't work. Oh, this really worked. Oh, this really worked. And then suddenly they've got a brand because like they went 1,000 different ways and 2 of them stuck.
Right. And branding, it really is a long game. And it's coming into who you are is such a huge part of it. So it's, and you will laugh because this client I talked to this morning, she's starting this new thing, and she said, I had a conversation with a branding specialist who told me that I needed to get everything set. And I said, you're kidding. She goes, no, it really frustrated me. I said, but you're developing who you are, and what you are, your brand. You are yourself. You're doing great. And she's like, thank you. So, but it was exactly what you were just talking about. Someone was pushing her to develop too soon. I'm like, you are your brand already. You'll get the assets when you're ready for them. Everything is good. Just keep moving forward. So I love the validation of a conversation I had like 6 hours ago. It's just amazing how, life and things work. We're almost at wrap up time. We got to give everybody a bonus goal, but first, why don't you tell people where they can find you, and then we'll give them a bonus goal, and then final words of wisdom. So.
Sure. So you could go to russellnohelty.com right under here, and you can see all
right
of my books.
Here.
A bunch of them you can get for free for joining our mailing list. If you want to see our Kickstarter, we have a Kickstarter going on. It's our book, Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter. It's the second volume. So if you like comics that are dark and brutal and action-packed and hilarious, then Ichabod is about a mental patient that escapes from an asylum and becomes a monster hunter, but doesn't know if he's killing monsters, humans, or it's all in his head the whole time. Bonus is that it is the nascent developmental stage of what our brand was. Like this, that first book, that book and Katrina Hates the Dead are the two books that really built our company and built our brand and built our ethos. And from there, everything sprouted out. But it was really because of that book being successful that the brand developed out of that. So really, it is a great encapsulation of everything that we've talked about so far today.
That's awesome. And as the bonus, it's your birthday. So I love that part of your birthday celebration was being on Gold Chat Live. So
it is absolutely this day, right now, it is still my birthday. And I asked Deb, please, to let me do it on this day.
Which is awesome, because here we're having, Gold Chat Live. It's the party. It's where we get to connect with our people and share things we know. So thank you for sharing your day with us and letting us help you celebrate by learning from you. So talk about your win-wins.
I know, right?
Okay. I think for the bonus goal, I think it should be the 3 things. Give some thought to what 3 things describe you and see which of them you need to amp up and which you need to tone down. Do you want to add anything to that?
I would say get 3 people that you know to tell you the 3 things that they think about you as well. And then you can match them up and see if there is brand congruency for yourself.
Okay. I'm going to edit it. Well, not even edit it. Get your 3 things first, then ask the people the 3
Absolutely.
things. So you're not influenced. Do it like secret ballot stuff.
For sure.
I love it. Okay. I'm going to try it too. I think this is a fun bonus goal. Thank you so much, Russell, for joining us today. Final thought, and then I'll do the wrap up.
Your brand is the thing that speaks for you when you can't speak for yourself.
Oh, that's great. I love it. The brand is the thing that speaks for you when you can't speak for yourself. Oh my goodness. This has just been such a fun chat, and it's a completely different direction from where Gold Chat went last night. So in the recap, which you can find at thedebmethod.com/blog, we will have a recap, the bonus goal, and you can also grab the tweets from last night's Gold Chat on branding. I'm Debra Eckerling. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to thedebmethod.com. And if you want to learn more about your goal guide, yourgoalguidebook.com will take you right to the Amazon link. And this has been so much fun. Thank you so much, Russell, for joining us, and for everybody who is watching today for this wonderful chat on branding. And you can catch me every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Pacific on Twitter for Gold Chat, and next Monday and every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific on the Mango Publishing Facebook page for Gold Chat Live. So we'll be back next week with another amazing guest and more knowledge to help you bring yourself, your business, your brand, your creativity out there to the next level and let people find you, because it's all about you, right? Getting yourself, figuring out who you are and getting that you out there so you can do the things you love and others can either learn or be entertained or informed by you, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Long conclusion. It's all good. Thanks again, Russell. Happy birthday. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Please share your tips in the comments and let us know how you did on that bonus goal. I'm Debra Eckerling. Thanks, and we will see you soon.